This is Dumbed Down Life number 34.
Glasshouse, One Night in Your Skin. And hello, everybody.
Hello, Doug.
Hi, Doug.
And you'll notice you won't hear a hello from Darren because... Darren's not here this week. Thanks very much for backing me up there, guys. I appreciate that.
Sorry, I thought you was just going to explain it all yourself.
In fairness, I didn't really know where Darren was or why he wasn't here, so...
Darren's in Missouri in a trailer with no internet connection and possibly ready to hang himself or something.
Is he having his very own Chainsaw Massacre experience?
Quite probably.
So Lance, that must make you the only person not to have either been living in or in America recently. How does it feel to be so small and left behind?
I feel very parochial.
Ah, bless.
Good.
I'm done.
Right, anyway, listen. Saturday night, we put the blow-up bed out in front of the sofa because my wife and I like to be incredibly lazy. And my wife had gone to sleep, and it was 3:30 in the morning. And I was sat watching sci-fi, and I was watching some really, these really crap made-for-TV movies that sci-fi put on all the time. I assume they do over here. Over there. They do over here, I don't know. But it was about killer spiders. I don't know. It was some rubbish. And suddenly I heard this truck pull up outside the front door. And I didn't think much about it. I thought, okay, fair enough. Maybe somebody's broken down or something like that. And I ignored it. And I ignored it for about 20 minutes. Then I decided to get up and have a look out the window. And it was a truck from a company, and I am going to mention the name, called Chandler Towing from North Carolina. Now, what it turns out is our apartment complex has policies on parking in disabled spaces, badly parked vehicles, vehicles without, a tax, and so on and so forth. And, needless to say, they hire a tow company, and these guys come in and tow away vehicles. However, as far as I'm aware, they don't sanction people coming in at 3:30 in the morning to tow away vehicles. So, in my dressing gown, I stepped outside and I walked over to the chap and I said to him, can you tell me exactly what it is you're doing? And he had the most schoolboy-like response I've ever heard in my life. He turned to me and said, well, what are you doing?
Oh, professionalism at work.
Yeah, absolutely. At which point, naturally, I said to him, well, it's 3:30 in the morning, mate. I'm trying to sleep. What the fuck do you think you're doing? And we proceeded to have this argument about the fact that he seemed to think it was perfectly justified to have his big fuck-off truck outside my house at 3:30 in the morning, disturbing me and all my neighbours trying to tow away this truck. And we proceeded to have an argument for about 20 minutes, or rather, he tried to ignore me and I did my very best to follow him around and yell at him pretty much. But yeah, I just wanted to share this story with you because Bobby raised an interesting point. She said to me, do you think you really should have got involved? And my answer is yes. I mean, not just because of the fact that he actually shouldn't have been towing away the neighbour's car. There was no reason for it. But the fact that this guy was outside the house at 3:30 in the morning. Now, one of his big arguments, and get this was a real gem. His argument was, it's a public street, I can do what the fuck I like.
It's not a
to
public
which I
street,
replied,
is it?
it's not a public street, it's a private complex and you shouldn't fucking be here, especially not at 3:30 in the morning. Of course, I mean, we pay nearly $1,000 a month to live in a private, gated community. There's no point paying that kind of money if they're going to let people in willy-nilly at all hours of the damn day.
Well, this is a question I was going to ask you, Doug, because I know you've mentioned before about the complex you live on. It is gated. So do they not actually close the gates at night, or did a security guard let him in?
Okay, well, we don't actually have a security guard here. What you have is you either have a remote control for the gates or there is a keypad where you can swipe a card across. But they close the gates. Generally, they close them. I think they close them at about 6 o'clock when the office closes and they go. But a lot of companies are given the emergency services, for one, have swipe cards, of course. Excuse me. I guess pizza delivery people have them. Either that or they hang around at the door until somebody comes in. I'm not entirely sure. But I would assume this guy probably does have some kind of swipe card or something to allow him in through the gates after hours.
Right.
And I kind of don't have an objection to that. But what I do have an objection to is him idling his truck outside my house at 3:30 in the morning. And he had no problem with it. He's like, well, I've got to work. I'm like, but it's 3:30 in the morning. Can you not see why I'm pissed off at you? And he's like, well, go back to bed then. I won't go back to bed, but there's some cunt with a truck outside my fucking door at 3:30 in the morning. And honestly, I mean, the guy was just... If he'd just said to me, listen, man, I'm sorry. You know, I've got to do this. My boss has told me to do this. I'm sorry for disturbing me. I'll try and get done as quickly as I can and be on my way. And I said, all right, well, you know, fuck off. You know?
Here's the number of my office. Give them a ring if you're not happy about it. I'm just doing what I'm told.
Yeah, exactly. But no, his whole attitude was, go back to bed. I've got to do what I've got to do. Tough. I just couldn't believe. I was so fucking... And the worst thing was, he said to me, I said, you know, can you not understand why I'm pissed? I said, 3:30 in the morning. He said, well, I've got to have the truck idling. I can't do anything without that. He said, I can make it a lot fucking louder if you want. I tell you what, I mean, you know what I'm like, Lance. I'm not exactly the most calm person at the best of times. It took everything within my power to stay calm with this guy. I mean, I was mad with him anyway.
Do you know what this reminds me of?
No.
So there's a big truck type thing in the middle of the road, and you're an Englishman having an argument with him, standing there in your dressing gown. Mm-hmm. Can you say Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy?
Do you know, it probably, yeah. Where's my towel?
What do you mean you want to knock down my house? I'm going to lie here. I'm going to lie here until you move.
Do you know what? If I have to be
what
honest,
are you going to do? Rust before I do?
If it hadn't have been for the fact that I'd have probably found myself in a world of trouble, which I don't need because obviously, you know, I'm trying to get a visa at the moment. But my real temptation was to walk round to the driver's cab of the truck, take the keys and go back in the house and leave him sat there without his fucking keys. But it was just staggering. It was just utterly staggering. I couldn't believe the guy. But I mean, what I was really curious about is, do you think it's right to, you know, go out and get involved in your neighbour's business when shit like that's going on?
At that time of the morning, yeah, because in my opinion, that is too late to be towing somebody's car away. Yeah, sure. If it shouldn't be there, it shouldn't be there, and if they've got the rights and the powers to tow them away, absolutely fine, fair enough. But the situation isn't going to change at 3 o'clock in the morning until, say, 7, 8, 9 o'clock the next morning.
Yeah, absolutely.
When it's sort of bit more civilised.
One of the things that irritated me is it just came across as such a sleazy way of doing it. You know, like they're going to come creeping in at 3:30 in the morning so they can take people's cars when everybody's asleep and no one's going to hassle them about it and make as much money as they can.
Well, yeah.
Instead of during the day when people can come out of their house and say, "Oh, you know, fuck off, you're not taking my car," you know.
Well, yeah, but absolutely. And another thought is that you don't expect a tow company to be operating at that time of the morning. So a van turns up and starts to tow away a vehicle. Now, to my mind of thinking, that sounds a little bit dodgy.
Yeah, absolutely.
It could have been anybody just coming onto the estate and nicking the bloody car.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, I mean, he did have his company name sprayed all over the truck, so that wouldn't have been, you know, too clever. But, I mean, that was my thought as well. Excuse me. I mean, he could have been stealing it for all I know. But,
yeah.
I mean, he was completely nonchalant, didn't give a damn about the fact that it was 3:30, essentially on a Sunday morning, not even a Saturday morning, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
And his whole attitude was, well, why don't you go back to bed? I'm like, well, why don't you fuck off and stop idling your truck outside my door at 3:30 in the damn morning? I was mad about that for a long fucking time.
Yeah, I can believe it.
As it goes, we spoke to the office, and the office said, yeah, absolutely, that's completely unacceptable. They shouldn't be here this time of the morning. We'll deal with it. So hopefully he'll get sacked. That would be nice.
Oh, God. I don't really know what to say to that. I hope he gets sacked.
Fuck him, he needs to learn some public service manners, you know?
We're English, don't you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Where's your bloody manners, damn it, boy?
Himself behind the wheel of an unfamiliar automobile on a road that he has never seen, going to a town he's never been to again. And he wonders if he's lost the thread of the dreams that ran inside his head, like a shadow or a silhouette rushing off to see some friends he's never met before. And the satellite is beaming down his signal to your tiny town, but nothing's getting through. It's much too far from you, and you know it. Well, there's a certain distance. So she stays at home, she tends the fire, works until her eyes are tired, feeds the dog, pets the cat. Every now and then she wonders where he's at right now. And the satellite is beaming down this signal to your tiny town, but nothing's getting through. It's much too far from you, and you know it. There's a certain distance. Maybe it's all inside your head. Maybe it's all inside your head. Time and space are not the same, no matter what Uncle Albert said. For him means rain for you, with the ray of sunlight shining through every now and then, and it's not enough. And you wonder, is this really all that love can be? There was a time you understood him, or at least you thought you could, but now you have your doubts, some words you can't make out. And the satellite is beaming down his signal to the tiny town, but nothing's getting through. It's much too far from you, and you know it. There's a certain distance. There's a certain distance. There's a certain distance. There's a certain distance. There's a certain distance.
That was Dave Nachmanoff with, oh Christ, I've forgotten what it was already. A Certain Distance, there we go.
What was his name, Lance?
Dave Nachmanoff. Nachmanoff.
Sounds like a type of rifle.
Or the Russian who's testically deficient.
Eugene Nikobalakov. Right, Birmingham. There's two Birminghams. There's one in England and there's one in America.
Yeah, in Alabama.
Yeah, because they love the governor down there, don't they?
They do, yes.
Apparently. So,
Yeah.
Birmingham City Council has admitted sending out leaflets which showed its US namesake's skyline instead of their own.
You can imagine the council meeting, can't you? We're sending out these leaflets, but it looks too much like Birmingham. We need to jazz it up a bit. I know what we can do.
Right. There's two sort of funny things to this, right? 720,000 pamphlets praising the Brummies for their recycling were sent around the city at a cost of £15,000. Right, for a start, that strikes me as a bit odd.
Yeah.
Right. They've had a big recycling campaign, and to celebrate how successful it was, they print 720,000 pieces of paper that people are going to screw up and put in a bin.
Well, yeah, but it's all right. They recycle. They can chop down a few trees.
Yeah, that's okay then. But instead of showing landmarks such as the Rotunda and the new Selfridges building, it showed downtown Birmingham, Alabama instead. John Cooper, 37, who spotted the error, said the council had thanked him for pointing out the mistake.
How the hell do you make a mistake like that?
Well, I think I know...
Of
Sorry, Ben, carry on.
It's the perils and pitfalls of outsourcing to a marketing agency that's probably made up of 18-year-olds that have no clue what they're doing.
And where did they go to find their image?
The internet.
It doesn't say, but my initial suspicion was Google Images Birmingham. Oh, that one looks nice. We'll use that. Now, the reason why I think this is because I actually did it. During my lunch break, I actually went on to Google Images, typed in Birmingham, and selected the first high-res image that I found, and yep, it was Birmingham, Alabama. So I'm fairly certain that's what they did.
Well done, Birmingham City Council.
Hang on a second, I'm just doing it myself, Lance, and let's see what we... Yeah, there we go. The first 1, 2, 3... the first 3 images are... Birmingham, Alabama. Yeah.
So I'm fairly certain that's how they did it.
One of us, any one of us.
Go on, Ben.
I guess it's fairly efficient at Birmingham Council. I mean, it's pretty par for the course, along with all their other, fantastic ideas that they've had over the years. Just look at Birmingham.
I mean, maybe that's it. Maybe it wasn't a faux pas. Maybe they did do it deliberately. They're like, well, we're not putting pictures of fucking Birmingham on the site.
Now, the funny thing is that our sales manager at work is from Birmingham. So, being the nice, caring, considerate person I am, I printed the story out and handed it to him and ran. He didn't speak to me for the rest of the day.
Well, I have to say, I've never been down as far south as that. Well, it's actually kind of southwest-ish from where I am. But I've never been to Alabama, so I have no idea if it's nice or not.
Well, it can't be any worse than the UK, Birmingham, surely.
Oh, I don't know. I do seem to remember that when Top Gear did their whole let's run through the South and offend as many people as we can, as they drove into Alabama, the Welcome to Alabama sign had gunshot holes.
Oh, is that the bit where they went round with man love rules okay on the car and that kind of thing?
That's right. Yeah, and country and western sucks.
Are you all trying to get yourself shot?
As you drive into Birmingham, UK, the sign is gunshot. Anyway, so
yeah, it is definitely a twin. Right.
And I'm not sure how welcome a gay scene in Birmingham would be either, I have to say.
Well, next time you go up, Ben, let me know.
Fuck off.
Right, my second story concerns the Beatles, or one of them in particular, John Lennon. Because Mark Chapman has been denied his parole application once again. He comes up for parole every couple of years now. And once again, he's been refused his parole because of concern for the public safety and welfare. Now,
that I can understand.
Well, I'm not sure I can. Because the whole sort of thing about Mark Chapman was his obsession with John Lennon. That's what sort of resulted in him shooting him. So the point of his obsession no longer exists. So is he really a threat to anybody else?
I'm not. I think when perhaps they say public safety, they're not necessarily talking about that. You have to bear in mind, rightly or wrongly, the Beatles are loved and adored by millions, and there's bound to be some idiot out there who, the second he steps out of prison, is going to come and top him. And by that very fact, that immediately puts other members of the public in danger.
But, yeah, I guess. I hadn't really looked at it like that.
Logical way of thinking about it.
I think it's probably more for his own safety and welfare than the public's, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess it could be, but I'm not entirely sure they can justify, well, we're going to keep you in prison because it's safer for you.
Yeah. Well, he's actually not in solitary confinement as such, but he is kept away from other inmates because of concerns for his safety.
Well, that's understandable. I mean, they killed Jeffrey Dahmer.
Who?
Jeffrey Dahmer. Good Lord, what do you mean, who?
Who?
Serial killer, Jeffrey Dahmer.
Never heard of him.
Okay, well, he's probably one of the most famous serial killers, along with people like Ted Bundy and stuff, and John Wayne Gacy.
I've heard of them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, hold on a second. Let me just flip through my Ladybird Guide to Serial Killers here. Oh, yeah, there he is.
I tell you what, you guys need to live with more women. Women tend to be obsessed with serial killers, and most of the women that I've lived with are. I'm not sure what that says about me. But anyway,
I'd love to live with a woman. I just don't have the opportunities at the moment.
And I should think Ben's pretty indifferent about it.
Yeah.
But anyway, Jeffrey Dahmer was killed in prison by another inmate. That was the point I was making.
Right, great, thanks. I mean,
you learn something new every day.
There you go. The one person that sort of I do think probably would be in danger if he did get out would be what's her face, the Japanese Yoko Ono, Lennon's wife.
Why, you think he'd go after her?
Possibly, yeah.
No.
Or she might go after him.
Say again?
Or she might go after him.
Yeah, well, from what I've seen of her in interviews, she's a bit of a feisty bitch.
Yeah. Apparently Yoko Ono said she was very pleased with the board's decision. No shit, Sherlock.
Yeah. Oh, I'm disappointed.
Do you know, obviously somebody sat there and asked Yoko Ono, so how do you feel about this decision? That's really does annoy me with modern day journalism when they just ask the most inane fucking questions. They're standing there with a family who's standing outside their house that's under 3 foot of water because of flash flooding. Their entire life is completely destroyed, and they go, so how are you feeling at this time? I'm on top of the fucking world, mate. You know?
The kids always wanted a pond.
Yeah, we've got an indoor swimming pool. You know, always look on the bright side.
Hold on a second. Their house is underwater and they're standing outside it.
Oh, shut up.
Hey, they did that in New Orleans.
Yeah, that's yeah. They went fishing.
Nice. I wonder if anyone in New Orleans' socks are dry yet.
I should think the socks are the least of their worries.
But they do, though, don't they? They do ask stupid bloody questions, don't they?
Yeah, but I mean, I guess, you know, what can they say? You know, Chapman has been denied parole. That's it. So they've got to find something else to put in the story. Oh, I know, let's go Buggy OK. She's fucking anxious.
Yeah, she's bound to give us a soundbite, yeah. Oh, I'm really pissed off. I think it's about time he was let out, actually. You know, I mean, yeah, okay, he killed my husband, but I mean, that was 27 years ago. Give the guy a break, you know.
No, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I dislike the Beatles with a passion, as you so rightly said earlier, Lance. I think they're one of the most overrated bands that ever has existed. However, I don't think that's good cause for John Lennon to die, or at least I'm not going to say so on live radio. But, you know...
Maybe just beat him up a little, you know.
Yeah, exactly. They could have stopped him singing, you know. Mark Chapman did commit murder. Whoever it was is irrelevant. He should spend life in prison. Simple as that.
Yeah, and you do think life should mean life?
Yeah, absolutely, I do. I have no qualms with it. The only sort of, you know, change to that would be mitigating circumstances, you know, abuse, stuff like that. Perhaps, I mean, as they do, I think in some places in Europe they have, like, you know, crime of passion. Maybe then. But generally speaking, no, if somebody kills somebody else, they should spend the rest of their days in prison. And also, when they come on these shows on TV about prison, they should shut the fuck up whining and suck it up. If they hadn't done the crime in the first place, they wouldn't fucking be there.
Don't want to mess with you.
He's not very opinionated, is he?
But doesn't that wind you up, though? Have you ever seen that on those TV shows about prisons? And you've got the prisoners going, they're disrespecting me. It's like, you're in prison, dude. What the fuck do you know about respect?
Yeah. Well,
you obviously have no respect for yourself. How can you bitch about other people disrespecting you? And then they bitch about the conditions. And, oh, you know, I don't get to do this, I don't get to do that. It's like, yeah, you're in fucking prison. You committed a crime. Don't commit a crime, you won't go to prison.
It's a punishment.
Exactly.
Well, there was a thing on the news the other day. I can't remember the full details of the story, but suffice to say, somebody was convicted of murder, and they will get life, and they were a teenager. And they got life in prison without possibility of parole. Well, apparently life is 12 years.
That's stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, it's certainly not over here, but I mean, it may be over there.
Yeah,
That's
it was over here.
That's not life.
I mean, 12 years. So say the guy was 18. He's only going to be 30 when he gets out. That's not life,
not
is
even
it?
half his life.
No.
No, that's ridiculous.
Now, the other question that sort of brings us into something really, really serious. If, say, you're saying life should mean life if they've committed the crime, they know they've committed the crime, it's all done and dusted, and they're put away for the rest of their life. What about the death penalty? Because if they're going to be, from a pure logistical point of view, the human side of it take away for a second, but from a logistical point of view, the taxpayer, so to speak, is going to be supporting that guy for the rest of his natural life, and he's going to make no contributions to society.
Yes.
So it's a complete waste of a life.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
just kill the bastard.
But
actually, no.
This is the thing,
Here's my opinion on it, and this is what I think should happen. Serious criminals who are dangerous are going to prison and are never going to be released, therefore they're never going to serve any further purpose to society, should be lobotomized. They should be lobotomized and they should be put to use working for the general public.
Seriously, that's
absolutely how I feel about it. I see that. I mean, the prison system does not work. There's like a 70% reoffend rate. The prison system doesn't work, and you get all these prisoners in prison. Most prisons are overcrowded, and we, the taxpayer, have to pay billions of dollars every year to support prisoners and keep them going, keep them living, give them gyms, give them TVs, give them all the rest of this. Fuck that. If they're in prison for life, if they're a dangerous criminal, lobotomise them and put them to use. Reduce the danger, reduce the risk, reduce the problems. You know, essentially turn them into I don't know what you'd call it, machines. Turn them into machines and put them to use.
Now, the problem with this kind of thing is that there's so many cases, both with that sort of theory and with the death penalty. There's so many cases where it later turns out that the person didn't actually commit the crime.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do agree. I mean, that is an issue. But for the small percentage that occurs, you can't say, well, we'll be kind on all the other really bastard motherfucking criminals because there's the occasional mistake. I mean, I don't know what to do about those mistakes. Obviously, lobotomy isn't reversible. They can't go, all right, well, here, have the front of your brain.
There's a death penalty. I mean, I think that's probably why it's just sort of incarceration for the rest of your life, because if they subsequently find out that the evidence was wrong and they didn't do it, they can just say, oh, I'm very, very sorry about that. Here's some money compensation and go and live the rest of your life.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think really the only way around that would be to do that in only absolute 100% clear-cut cases.
But
which there are. There are cases out there that are 100% clear-cut. Either there are plenty of witnesses on the scene, it's caught on video, the person themselves admit to doing it, what have you. In cases like that, yes. Yeah,
the likes of Manson and Bundy and Michael Ryan over here, the guy that went nuts in Hungerford. And the Dunblane, those kind of things, it's beyond it's so far beyond reasonable doubt, it's a dead cert, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, plus, in all fairness, the majority of prisoners in prison did it, and they admit it.
Absolutely, yeah.
So those, if the person admits they did it, stick a hot poker at their nose and lobotomise the fuckers, make them serve a purpose.
You forgot the luck and turn. When you come home, what will you do? Now that your friends are gone, there's no one you turn to. And when you cry, no one will hear. Now there's nowhere to turn and you're left standing here. When you come home, when you come home, when you come home, when you come home. Consuming a world that just didn't care. Illusions fade and dreams can disappear. And there were so many you left behind. Now it's too late to try and put it right. You forgot the looks can fade. You forgot the plans we made. When you come home, what will you do? Now that your friends are gone, there's no one you turn to. And when you cry, no one will hear. Now there's nowhere to turn and you're left standing here. When you come home, when you come home, when you come home, when you come home. You forgot about your peace of mind. Now there's nothing left, nothing more you can hide behind. When you come home. You forgot the look and turn. You forgot all those you heard. When you come home, what will you do? Now that your friends are gone, there's no one you turn to. And when you cry, no one will hear. Now there's nowhere to turn and you're left standing here. When you come home, when you come home, when you come home, when you come home.
So that's Lisa Redford and When You Come Home. Such a lovely song there. Good choice, Lance.
Thank you.
So I've just been to Seattle for just under 2 weeks, and that does, as we were saying earlier, make Lance the only sad, lonely and pathetic person that's never been to the States.
Okay, let's just clear this up for our listeners who might be a bit dense. You went to a place called Seattle, you didn't go to see a person called Attle, right?
Okay, if anyone listening does have an IQ under 12, then thanks very much, Doug, for clearing that one up for us. So I wasn't there on holiday, actually. I just spent a week and a half out there doing some work for a very, very big corporation, well known for being environmentally friendly and generally good for people.
Apple.
Sainsbury's?
Yeah, that's right. Sainsbury's, the biggest company in the world, is Sainsbury's. No, I was out there working for Billy Boy, Microsoft. So that was it was quite a lot of fun, really. They made use of my cheap labour, sent me out there, and I was working on a project called Popfly for a week, which was quite good. And then I got to tour around a bit and have a look at some other really cool hardware and software. I saw a preview for the next flight simulator, and the kind of spin-off that they're making from Flight Sim called ESP, which is actually, it's like Flight Sim but with the fun stuff taken out, and it's actually for governments and for the military to actually train people using simulator technology, which is cool.
You didn't happen to manage to get me one, did you?
I have a copy of it, yes.
You need to come and see me.
So, is it any good? Because I know that the last flight simulator that was released, everybody basically bitched and whined about it because it was too resource hungry. You needed a monstrously powerful machine to make it do anything half decent.
Yeah, and there were a lot of reasons for that, but they've actually tackled that quite well so far with the new one. But the really cool thing about the new Flight Sim is some of the new hardware that it supports. I was trying out a copy of this new Flight Sim, and later on this evening you'll be able to see a video of me doing this on my blog. I was wearing a 3D headset that was motion detecting. So I put this thing on, I had the screen in front of me, so it was like I was in the cockpit, moving my head around, and it was actually moving the view around just with this motion sensor and this kind of vision visor thing I was wearing.
Oh, fantastic.
Awesome.
And the price of this hardware, bundled with Flight Sim, is only going to be $50.
You're joking.
Wow, that's cheap.
So that is going to be available to everyone in about 12 months when Flight Sim comes out, and that was fantastic.
Right, my question with that, Ben, is now I play flight simulators quite obsessively. And,
yes.
Okay, you've got your flight stick, joystick, whatever control you're using to fly the thing.
Yep.
You also use keyboards to raise and lower flaps, or a mouse to click the things on the cockpit to do those things for you, right?
Believe it or not, this was my first question to them as well. If you're wearing something like a visor where your vision is literally going to be what's on the screen, how are you going to be able to use your keyboard shortcuts and that kind of thing when you can't see the keyboard?
Exactly.
Well, that's one of the big things they're tackling now, and their work. I mean, obviously, you can play the game with the standard hardware that you've been using for years. This isn't something that's going to be the only thing you can use with Flight Sim, but they're developing a lot of ways that you can actually do everything without the need for a keyboard. So they're developing new bits of hardware for that the hardware is actually going to be visualized on the screen as well. So if you plug in like a particular joystick and yoke that has the different buttons that do everything on, it'll actually detect what you've plugged in, and it will render that on the screen so that you can actually see what you're doing and see what position it's in. So that's quite cool. Also, they're trying to make all of the panels and all of the instruments and everything so that you can interact with them completely with a mouse and do everything that you could do on a keyboard. So if they get that sorted, I think that would be quite cool.
Yeah.
Well, another option, of course, for them would be voice recognition. They could use that for some of the commands, certainly. That
is the big thing that they're saying in Flight Sim 11. Expect voice. Like at the moment, when you try and call through to an air traffic control tower, you have to press buttons on the keyboard. Mm-hmm. You'll actually be able to talk to your computer as if it was a real air traffic control tower.
Now that would be sweet, because that's the one part of Flight Sim I always really enjoyed, was a whole interaction with air traffic control. Now, I refuse point blank to admit that I'm a geek or a nerd, because I think that's the realm of people like Lance, you, and Darren.
Thank you.
But I have to say, when it comes to Flight Sim, I am a total nerd. I completely love it. It's just the coolest thing in the world.
So yeah, that does look absolutely fantastic. Another thing I got to play with while I was out there was a Microsoft Surface. Has anyone seen anything about that?
Yeah, I've seen those over here, not advertised, but on TV and stuff, and they look pretty intense too.
It was absolutely amazing. We sat down, we put our coffee down on this table, and it came to life. It looked like water. We pressed it, it would make ripples, it'd interact with us. And then, we press a button on the screen, and it gives us this menu with all these different applications and things we could do with it. And it was all multi-touch, touch-sensitive, based inside this table, and it was absolutely fantastic.
Right. So again, I've got questions on this because I've seen the sort of the promotional videos that they've released so far of it, and they all pretty much revolve around images, photos, and that. You can see the guy stretching the photo, spinning it around, moving it over to the other side of the desk, bringing a new one in, and doing different things and that sort of thing with it. Now, if it's going to say replace a desktop PC, for example. Say for doing my job, right? You know how my job works, yeah. For example, say Microsoft Excel, the spreadsheets. Will it have like a keyboard on the Surface? So
it already does. Basically, if you open up an application like Word, you get a floating keyboard as well that you can resize just by touching it with your fingers and dragging it. And it's very, very responsive and easy to use. I was typing lots of different keys at different times, and it works just like a normal keyboard, but it was just anywhere on the Surface, and I could move it around wherever I wanted it to be. And
you'd select different cells within the spreadsheet by just touching that cell and then going to your keyboard and typing?
Yeah, absolutely, that's
fantastic.
Right.
I mean, I have to say, from somebody who's reasonably techie, I'm surprised it's taken them this long to come up with something like this.
Well, the reason it's taken so long is because of the sheer amount of stuff that's inside it. I mean, it uses 12 different cameras inside it to gauge exactly where your fingers are, and it can do an unlimited number of touches at any one time. So you could have 3 people using 5 fingers each, and it wouldn't lag. It would detect where all of them were instantly. There's a lot of power and a lot of technology behind it.
That's nice.
Yeah, that does. I mean, like I say, I'm like you, Lance. I've seen the promo videos. I saw the one where they did the big presentation with a guy up on stage demonstrating and stuff. And it's real Minority Report kind of stuff. You know, It looks pretty cool.
Now, it's fantastic. It was a real joy to use. It's totally responsive and everything.
Does it do? I mean, obviously, the Surface technology itself is just the technology. It's whatever applications you build for it, I guess. But does it have sort of like handwriting recognition, so you could physically write with a stylus on the thing instead of using a keyboard?
Yeah, it recognises different objects. It recognises fingertips, but it'll also recognise pens, pencils, paintbrushes. There's a great program that's already been written for Surface that will detect different types of paintbrush and let you paint very realistically on there. But also, if you just get a regular pen with a lid on and start writing on it, it will detect you using a pen, and it will just,
So you could have a word processor out, say Microsoft Word, and you could be writing in your handwriting with the script, and it would be translating that into normal fonted typed text.
Yeah, and there's a program already out called Microsoft OneNote that does that all automatically for you, which is designed for tablet PCs, which is quite cool.
Okay, but here's the really big question: when are they due to release it, and how much is it going to cost?
It's already in production. A lot of businesses have already bought them. In America, in certain places in the States, if you go into an AT&T store, they have a large number of Surfaces across their stores already. At the moment, it's a bit out of the price range of the general public. It's about $8,000 for a Surface.
I mean, that's a lot of money. But if you look at it, you buy a really, really high-end PC, you're going to pay $4 or $5,000 for it anyway.
Yeah, the only difference is that you can use normal applications and stuff on it, but there's still a lot of software currently in production, like that works specifically with the Surface. So, in about kind of 2 or 3 years' time, I think they'll be more affordable and they'll have better software on them, which will be really fantastic. You can see a demo of me actually using the Surface. Did a video blog while I was out in Seattle over on my blog, and there's a video up on there, the most latest video, and I'm using the Surface, and there's actually a grand piano application for it. So I'm sat there on the Surface playing the piano. Which is
awesome.
And it's very responsive and it sounds fantastic. So.
And does that then measure how hard you're touching the Surface to get different volume out of the piano?
Yeah, because of the way the infrared cameras work, it can detect how hard you're pressing when you press, because obviously your thumb turns a different colour to the Surface camera depending on how hard you're pressing.
Right, yeah, I'm with you. That sounds fantastic.
So what's it based on? Is it Vista based? Is it a new operating system? Because I know
well,
they are talking about a new operating system they're working on at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah, that's the next version of Windows. That's Windows 7, but this doesn't use that. This was it uses, depending on what it's doing. It can either use XP or Vista, but obviously it's got its own shell built on top of that that it launches applications from. You don't have a start menu. The menu system is very interactive, and it's all kind of, you run your finger along the menu and it moves around and that. So it's not recognisably Windows, but it does use Windows as a base.
So if I went out and bought one tomorrow, assuming I'll win the lottery, I could run my existing applications on it, could I?
Yes, because it's Windows. It's fully compatible with everything. So that was Surface. The cool bit of technology that I picked up while I was out in the States that I've actually got with me now is a Microsoft Zune,
which is their answer to the iPod, isn't it?
Yes, and it's not been released outside of America, which is why you don't really see them in the UK. And it's the second version of their Zune, of their MP3 player, Microsoft. But it's got a bit of a bad reputation because it's not the same as the iPod. Now, I think that a lot of the time when people get an iPod, it's more of a fashion statement than anything else. An iPod is, it's the Apple iPod. People get it because of what it is.
Yeah, it's trendy to have one.
Yeah, but when I've got an iPod and I've got this Zune now, and I compare the two, and I absolutely love the Zune. It's so much nicer to use. It's got a bigger screen. It's got a nicer interface. It's just, I think that it doesn't deserve the bad rep that it's got, and I think they need to start releasing these in Europe because it's an absolute joy to use.
Yeah, I mean, it's similar over here, actually, with the Apple iPhone. And there are a couple of other companies now over here, the major providers that have started releasing their equivalents of the Apple iPhone. People are much the same over here, I think. They're like, well, it's not the iPhone. And it's like, well, it doesn't matter. If it's as good as and does what the other one does, then, what's your problem?
I think,
becoming about...
Isn't the sort of... the thing with Apple is not so much that they produce the best thing that you can get, that they do seem to be a bit more innovative than other companies, and then other companies follow suit and improve upon what Apple have created. So, I mean, when the iPod came out, it was vastly superior to any MP3 player that was around at the time. Most MP3 players were small flash disk based things that only held a few hundred songs. They had no sort of real interactiveness with them. You couldn't create playlists. You literally just loaded your songs on, hit the play button, and you had play, fast forward, stop, and skip tracks and that kind of thing. The iPod came out.
You've got to give Apple that. I mean, they've made a game changer. They really, really recreated something when they made the iPod. But I think that it's a lot of it is brand identity just going way too far, because Apple, I mean, you compare people's opinions of Apple to Microsoft, yet Apple are by far a less caring and kind of economic company. They do a lot less to do kind of image-worthy things than Apple do. It's just because they've got this kind of trendy image that people get the iPod and the iPhone and things like that. And they've made a good piece of hardware, but it's not the only good bit of hardware around, and the software on the iPods and on the iPhone is not as great as everyone says it is.
I think it comes back to Mac envy. This whole thing that if you talk to anybody that owns a Mac, then they're the coolest people in the world. They're better than everybody else because it's a Mac and not a PC. And I think, because the majority of people use PCs, there's this image out there that somehow if you use a Mac, you're cool. You're something special because you use a Mac. And I think from that initial seed of that kind of social view of Mac, then everything else that's been made by Apple follows suit.
It's a fairly elitist attitude, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not following the herd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though now, if you own an Apple product, you are
following the herd. Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, I've got an iPod, and I use my iPod daily. I use it for listening to podcasts. I've got my entire music collection on it. It's great. It's wonderful. It's fantastic. I've got no interest in buying a Zune. Not because I feel that the iPod's better, but because I've got an iPod. It sort of, it came out first. I've got that one first, and I don't really see any need to go and change it because what I have does what I need it to do.
I have my iPod already, but I thought to myself, well, I'm not going to be able to get a Zune anywhere else. I'm in the States, so I'll get one because I want to try and see what the difference between the two are. And if it's rubbish, I'll eBay it, and if it's good, then I'll keep it. And I'm definitely not getting rid of it. It's going to replace my iPod as my main MP3 player because it just does everything that little bit nicer and that little bit better.
I mean, we Ben and I have actually spoken about this. I think it was yesterday, wasn't it? And the one thing that I do really like the idea of that the Zune does that the iPod doesn't is wireless connection through your wireless network at home to your PC for synchronizing. So instead of having to plug it in like you do with my iPod, you have to physically plug it into your computer. iTunes starts up and then automatically syncs. When Ben walks into his house with his Zune, it automatically recognises that it's at its home network and just starts syncing away, which I think is an absolutely fantastic idea. You don't have to remember to sync, it just does it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I think that's a brilliant idea.
And I can get things like email and everything all on my Zune through the wireless connection in it as well. So, it's not too shabby at all. I
mean, I think it's definitely better than the iPod Touch or the iPhone. Those two things have never sorry, I've just been thrown there. Those two products have never really appealed to me because I don't use my iPod in that kind of way. I literally use mine just for using it for music. I don't watch videos on it. I don't do anything like that. So those two products really don't bother me too much. So the fact that the Zune is better doesn't bother me because it does those things better, but I don't use those things.
For all of its advanced features, there's one thing from the Zune that separates it from the iPod in my eyes. The Zune has an FM tuner built into it. So I'm out and about, I can listen to my music, or I can actually listen to the radio, which is something you just can't do without an add-on for an iPod.
No, that's very true. Right, just finish off with this. Just say that the reason that you did go to Seattle was for the fact that that was part of your prize for winning the UK Imagine Cup that we spoke about some weeks ago, wasn't it?
That's right, and I'm hoping now that I've come back from Seattle, I no longer have to talk about my Imagine Cup entry again.
Yeah, all done and dusted.
Absolutely.
Right. Well, thanks, guys. We think we broke some sort of a record this week, actually.
Well, it certainly wasn't the fucking swearing one.
I think it was. Probably the most swearing we've ever done, actually. Fuck, fuckity fuck.
Fuck up, you fucking retard. Fuck you.
All right, enough. Yeah, if we can string this out for another, if we can string this out for another minute and a half, we've done bang on an hour, which I think is the longest ever.
Let's all just swear some more then.
No, shall we do the contact information instead?
Yeah, let's.
Right. If you want to call us and give us a bit of a bollocking for all the fucking swearing that we've been doing, it's 07092 274 759, or you can send us an email on Doug
ddl.podshow@googlemail.com.
And here's a test. Ben, what's our website?
You can visit us on the web at www.dumbeddownlife.com, and if you've got Twitter, you can follow us on Twitter at dumbeddownlife, or you can just fuck off.
No, you're not coming back next week. I did actually want to talk about Twitter, but I might have to leave that until next week, by which time it will be old news and I'll have forgotten about it. But yeah, we've run out of time, really, haven't we?
Oh, sorry.
It's all right, it's no problem. Just ignore me. I'll go away.
Yay!
Right, we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.